Chapter 1, The Silent One. They called her the Feral. Not to her face, never directly, but the name traveled fast. Whispers behind clawed hands, snickers through gills, psychic pings masked as harmless. Elara Wynn heard them all. She just didn't care. The halls of Ark's Nullies gleamed in sterile silver, cold and humming with power. The Academy floated in orbit above a collapsing star, an ironic place to house the galaxy's brightest. Inside its gravity-controlled domes, species from 50 worlds learned war, diplomacy, and dominance. Humans were not welcome. Elara's boots echoed down the corridor alone. Others moved in packs, in formations, in synchronized elegance. She walked like a shadow, measured, invisible. Her face betrayed nothing, her posture neutral. Not bowed, not proud. Just there. Kaldar noticed. He always noticed. "You're leaking again, little Earthblood," Kale drawled, gliding beside her with predatory ease. His pale blue skin shimmered under the lights, robes trimmed in obsidian, an air seal etched over his heart. Behind him, 2 Vornak sentinels flanked like loyal teeth. Elara glanced down. A drop of crimson dotted her sleeve. Nosebleed. Again. She wiped it without pause. Kale stepped into her path. "You know," he said, voice oozing theatrical sympathy, "if your body's breaking down in our gravity, I could ask the Chancellor for permission to dissect you. Human anatomy intrigues me." Elara stepped around him without a word. Kale smiled wider. "That silence of yours, some say it's strength. But to me, it smells like fear. Instructors never interfered." "Not really." Dean Throx gave her a sympathetic nod once when Kale spilled plasma gel on her desk, but only after the class laughed. "Cultural integration takes resilience," the dean had said afterward, his tendrils twitching. Resilience. That's what they called survival now. Elara sat through every lesson, absorbed every detail. Not for vengeance. Not to prove them wrong. She simply needed to understand how they thought, how they moved. Because understanding was safety. The whispers continued. "Why does it just sit there? Earthlings were emotional once. This one's broken. Maybe she's already been lobotomized." Even the non-violent species, like the Glintborn from Sector Oryx, steered clear. There was something in her silence that unsettled them more than retaliation ever could. Festival week arrived. Once every cycle, Ark's Nullies hosted the Tournament of Lineage, a series of mock duels meant to display heritage, tradition, and bloodline strength. Aliens competed in ceremonial armor. Royal houses watched from private skyboxes. Honor was currency here. Elara had no invitation. Still, she stood at the edge of the grand arena, watching the crimson sands drink sunlight from the artificial sky. Kale stood in the center, saluting a howling crowd with a sweeping arc of his blade. He was the champion, of course. Undefeated. Worshipped. Deadly. He turned, and pointed the blade toward her. A hush fell. "Earthling," he called, voice amplified. "I hereby challenge you. Observer class, represent your home." Elara didn't move. "Refusal is dishonor," Kale said, eyes gleaming. "You may not care about your reputation, but the galaxy is watching. Let's see how long a human can last." Eyes turned. Probes zoomed in. A few instructors shifted in their seats. No one stopped him. Elara stepped forward, just enough for her voice to carry. "I decline." Kale laughed. The crowd joined him. "You decline honor? How human." He dropped the blade with a hiss and closed the distance between them. His eyes never left hers. They said Earth learned humility after the war. They were wrong. He reached out, slow, deliberate, and slapped her. It wasn't hard. It wasn't soft. It was precise. The sound cracked like a spark in cold air. Her head turned with the force, but she didn't stumble. A strand of hair slipped across her cheek, streaked with a fresh drop of red. The arena fell deathly silent. Elara lifted her face. Her eyes were no longer empty. They were still. Dead still. Kale took a step back. A pulse radiated from her body, soundless, invisible, but tangible. The air shimmered around her like a mirage. Symbols, faint, ancient, glimmered beneath her skin in faint blue. She whispered something. Only Kale heard. He froze. What did you say? Elara's mouth moved again. This time, the words were audible. Protocol Terra, override accepted. The symbols flared. Her pupils vanished. Her stance straightened as if pulled upright by invisible strings. And for the first time in months, she smiled. Just slightly. Not at Kale. At something inside her. Kale staggered back. The crowd gasped. The Academy's power grid flickered. One of the hovering drones sparked and fell. Guards, Kale barked, voice cracking. Detain her. No one moved. No one could move. The ground trembled beneath her. Elara's feet lifted an inch off the arena floor. And then, she spoke again. But it wasn't her voice anymore. You touched the last child of Earth. You were warned. The sound came from everywhere, from the sky, the soil, the bones of the arena itself. Kale screamed. And the stars inside Ark's nullies dimmed. Chapter 2, The Awakening. Kale hit the ground like a puppet with its strings severed. He wasn't dead. Not yet. But something had unraveled inside him the moment she spoke. His limbs twitched. His eyes rolled. The proud Prince of Vornak whimpered like a child in the middle of a once-cheering arena that now held its breath. Elara hovered. No wings. No force field. No technology. She simply hung in the air, silent and untouchable, her body suspended by something unseen, something old. The markings beneath her skin had bloomed into sharp blue lines, crisscrossing her neck, arms, and face like circuitry carved by time. Her hair drifted weightlessly around her, as if gravity no longer recognized her. Above, the artificial sun dimmed to a sickly hue. The entire arena, engineered to withstand orbital bombardments, shuddered. Students scrambled back. Instructors whispered emergency protocols. But no one moved toward her. No one dared. Because the voice that spoke through her wasn't hers. Designate, Terra 0. Core activation achieved. Host verified. Threat classification, Galactic Prime. Judgment pending. The words echoed through metal, blood, and bone. She's a weapon, someone muttered from the stands. No, whispered another. She's a message. Inside her mind, Elara stood on a glass ocean. It stretched in every direction, skyless and vast. Beneath the surface moved shapes, memories not her own. One rose. A battlefield. Earth. Ash choking the sky. Alien banners trampled under human boots. Soldiers screaming into the void. Then another. Lab-coated figures working in silence. Injecting a newborn with something dark and pulsing. Whispering ancient names over her crib. A final memory surfaced. If they strike first, let her burn bright enough for the stars to remember. She gasped. Back in the arena, her body moved, calm, measured. Her feet touched the ground without sound. Where she stepped, the floor cracked in thin fractures like spiderwebs across glass. Kale groaned, dragging himself backward. I didn't mean, he choked. She tilted her head. The violence was not yours alone. The arrogance, that is your inheritance. Her voice layered, Elara's tones braided with something ancient and mechanical. Every syllable felt calibrated, surgical, inevitable. Kale lashed out. Desperation overrode reason. He lunged with a blade, ceremonial, glowing with a Vornak war rune. She raised a single finger. Time broke. Everyone saw it. The blade slowed midair. Its momentum froze, not in hesitation, but in denial of physics. Kale hung in that instant, caught between movement and memory. And then, the blade reversed. It didn't slice him. It folded. Inward. Steel collapsed like paper in his hand, crushing bone and severing thought. He dropped, screaming. Elara lowered her hand. Security finally moved. Not by choice, but command. Chancellor Marin, voice shaking, barked orders through the comms. Contain her. Quantum field. Level Omega. Drones rose. 3 converged. They didn't reach her. As they neared, she looked up. A flick of her eyes, and all 3 drones imploded, folding in on themselves without a flash, without sound. Gone. Dust. That was the problem. It wasn't rage. It wasn't passion. It was precision. Earth encoded its defense not in machines, but in bloodline. She turned to the crowd. You thought we died. You were wrong. In the control tower, alarms screamed. System errors flooded the screens. Ancient warnings in Old Terran code appeared, warnings not seen since the end of the First Contact War. The system couldn't override her. Because she was the override. Elara walked toward Kale. Each step cracked the arena's foundation. He crawled away, sobbing now, pride stripped, legacy broken. Mercy, he begged. She paused. You never gave it. But I am not you. She turned away. The crowd didn't cheer. Didn't move. They only watched, held hostage by a quiet girl who hadn't lifted a weapon. Back inside her own mind, Elara pushed against the presence, this thing, that had risen from her genes. You were never meant to be unleashed, she thought. This wasn't the plan. The plan failed when they struck first. I don't want this. Want is irrelevant. We are memory. We are consequence. Then sleep. Please. The presence paused. Only if you remain strong enough to hold the seal. And just like that. Her eyes dimmed. Her body trembled. Her knees buckled. She collapsed. The glow vanished. The silence returned. Medical bots rushed in. Kale was pulled away on a hover stretcher, his arm bent at unnatural angles, his mind, somewhere far from the present. Elara lay still. She breathed. Barely. Later, in a sealed chamber far below the academy, Chancellor Marin watched the playback in silence. Around him, representatives from 7 species sat in horror. She was part of the Accord, one hissed. She violated galactic law, another growled. No, Marin corrected, eyes wide. We violated the boundary. We struck the sleeping lion and called its silence cowardice. What is she? Someone whispered. Marin played the audio again. Just the part before she collapsed. You touched the last child of Earth. You were warned. No one spoke after that. Not for a long time. Chapter 3, Terra Remembers. Elara woke in silence. No hum of drones. No murmuring students. No Kale. The light above her pulsed soft and blue, casting long shadows across the metal chamber. A containment field shimmered faintly around her. She was sitting, arms wrapped around her knees on a narrow cot inside a glass cube. Outside, 3 figures watched. 2 were guards. The third wore diplomat gray robes and had eyes too tired for someone with 2 hearts. Chancellor Marin. He approached the field. You're awake. She didn't respond. He tapped the console, lowering the dampening frequency. Do you remember what happened? Yes, she said, voice low. All of it. Marin hesitated. Do you know what you are? She met his gaze. Not completely. That makes 2 of us. In the council chamber, the discussion was no longer academic. It was strategic. Calculated. A hologram of Elara rotated slowly in the center, displaying everything, from the moment she hovered, to Kale's fall, to the system-wide energy spike. A Sithari delegate growled, "She's a genetic weapon. The Accord prohibits engineered entities." A diplomat from the Eric's coalition interjected, "We don't know that. There's no record of active augmentation." "She spoke in pre-collapse Terran protocol code," snapped the Vornak ambassador. "That's not natural." "She didn't attack," Marin reminded them. "She responded." Silence. Then the oldest delegate, a lizard-skinned Lycenthi, clicked her claws together. "If that was a response, what happens if she actually fights?" Back in the chamber, Alara sat cross-legged, staring at her hands. They looked normal now. No glow. No trembling. Just hands. She whispered, "Are you still there?" "Nothing." She tried again. "I need to understand what you are." A flicker, like static behind her thoughts. "I am not a weapon. I am what remains." "Of what?" "Of Earth's truth." Her heart tightened. "Why me?" "Because you were quiet. Because you listened. Because you never struck first." That night, Marin returned alone. He disabled the surveillance orb. "You're being transferred," he said. Alara didn't flinch. "Execution?" "Sanctuary," he replied. "If Earth agrees." She looked at him. "You're afraid." He didn't deny it. "I saw Prince beg," he said. "I saw technology fail. I saw a girl who never raised her hand cause more terror than any war fleet." "Tell me, Alara, is Earth back?" "No," she said. "Earth never left." Before departure, Kale requested an audience. The council forbade it. He insisted. They relented. Alara waited in the same containment chamber, field inactive. No restraints. They knew better now. Kale entered slowly. His arm was still in a cast. His gait uneven. But it was his face that had changed. Gone was the pride. The sneer. The cruel smirk. What stood before her now was a boy carved hollow by fear. "I don't know what you are," he said. "But I need to know, why didn't you kill me?" She studied him. "Because that would have made me like you." He flinched. Alara stood. She walked to the invisible line between them and stopped. "I never wanted to be here. I never wanted to awaken. But you wouldn't stop. You pushed until something older than both of us had to speak." He lowered his gaze. "I thought humans were extinct." "No," she said quietly. "We're just very, very patient." He left without another word. 2 days later, Alara stood at the docking bay. A transport waited, bound for an undisclosed Terran vessel beyond known space. Chancellor Marin approached one final time. "Do you know where they're taking you?" She shook her head. "Will you be safe?" She looked at the stars. "If they listen." The ship's ramp opened. She turned to ascend, then paused. "Marin." He blinked. "Yes?" "Next time you see a quiet child," she said, "don't assume they're weak. They might just be waiting." Then she was gone. Back in the arena, now empty and closed, the cracks in the floor remained. No one dared repair them. Not as a sign of neglect. As a reminder. On the outer fringe of the galaxy, a signal echoed through ancient frequencies, ones the central systems no longer monitored. It repeated only one phrase. "Terra remembers." And across forgotten bunkers, sleeping satellites, and silent moons, old systems stirred. Because Alara Wynn had awakened. And Earth was listening. Chapter 4, A Memory Sharper Than Steel. The Terran vessel wasn't a ship, it was a whisper against the void. Sleek, matte black, with no visible engines, no registry marks, and no crew on the ramp. It didn't land so much as appear, suspended above the fractured moon of Arx Nullies, like it had been waiting for a signal no one else could hear. Alara stepped aboard. The air inside wasn't recycled like the Academy systems. It was warm. It smelled faintly of petrichor, like rain on Earth soil. A sound, almost a heartbeat, echoed faintly through the walls. The lights flickered to life without a word. No one greeted her. Yet, she wasn't alone. As she moved, the corridors seemed to shift to her steps, rerouting themselves. The vessel wasn't flying her, it was welcoming her. A living archive. A relic of Earth's forgotten war. At the center of the ship stood a circular chamber. In its middle, a stone pedestal. On it, an object she'd only seen in encrypted memories. A mask. Jet black, etched with a spiral of silver veins, pulsing softly. She touched it. Codename, Remnant. Protocol verification, Alara Win. Carrier lineage confirmed. Command seat activated. A panel opened in the floor. The ship shifted. The stars outside twitched, no sound, no acceleration. Just displacement. She was gone from the system in less than a second. Far above the Senate core on Draxia Prime, galactic leaders were already rewriting doctrine. The integration accords were suspended. Human observation was restricted. Earth was labeled a latent Class C anomaly. No one said the word threat. But no one had to. They all saw the same broadcast. A girl floating in midair, collapsing war tech with her eyes. In the command chamber, Alara sat before a projection of Earth, not as it was now, but as it had been, blue, burning, buried. Memories poured in. Cities beneath oceans. Satellites reprogramming themselves into guardians. A planet that pretended to be weak so the stars would forget what it once built. She stared at the image. We should have fought. The voice returned, calmer now. We did. We just chose to remember instead of retaliate. But they think we're extinct. Let them. Alara stood. No. She pressed her palm against the pedestal. We don't hide anymore. The ship shifted again. Coordinates realigned. A new destination. The Karnix Vault, a deep space observatory that once studied dead civilizations. Now, it stored what couldn't be understood. Or controlled. Among the things inside, a captured Earth artifact. One the galaxy thought disarmed. The station floated, forgotten, manned by only a skeleton crew. Most of its staff didn't even know what they were guarding. That changed when Alara arrived. She didn't enter through the docking bay. She simply appeared in the main chamber. 3 guards raised rifles. She looked at them once. They stopped breathing. Not dead. Just paused. She moved past them. Through sealed doors. Through radiation fields. Through layers of alien encryption. The vault opened. Inside, a sphere, obsidian and dormant. The same veins as her mask. She placed a hand on it. Awaken. The sphere pulsed once. Then spoke. Designate, seed core. Linked host detected. Reintegration authorized. The lights across the galaxy flickered. Not just at Karnix. Everywhere. Buried nodes on moons. Terran satellites sealed for generations. Subroutines buried in forgotten codebases. All of them blinked. Not to attack. Not yet. To remember. Because memory was Earth's last weapon. At the edge of Council space, Cale Vorton sat in a meditation chamber. His injuries had healed. His mind hadn't. He hadn't spoken since his visit to Alara. Not to his family. Not to his command. But when the lights dimmed and that pulse echoed through the walls, he looked up. She's not done, he whispered. On a warship orbiting Sector Delta 9, a young captain, Sarah Mallon, received a signal. Her crew traced it, but found nothing. Still, the message repeated. One line. The stars betrayed us. The silence was never surrender. She stood from her chair, eyes wide. Send this to command. Her second hesitated. They'll bury it. Send it anyway. Back aboard Remnant, Alara stared into the stars, her reflection shining in the dark glass of the command screen. She didn't feel rage. Or triumph. Just clarity. For centuries, Earth had been quiet. Too quiet. And now the galaxy feared its children, not for what they did, but for what they might do if ever provoked again. A warning wasn't enough. It had to be understood. She turned to the system console. Play it. A projection began, scenes from the contact war, the horrors Earth endured, the cost of silence, the construction of her kind. She'd transmit it everywhere. Not as a threat. As history. Let the stars remember. And far, far away, on a barren world with no name, a small human child stood beneath a sky of 3 suns. She looked up, eyes glinting faint blue. She smiled. She didn't know Alara. But she'd heard the voice. Terra remembers. And so would she.